They travel at speeds pushing 200 miles per hour. The very best drivers in the world putting their lives on the line every week. It's time to get the lowdown on this week's contenders, plus a look at the key driver matchups. Right now on Gaughan Racin.
And welcome back in, everybody, to Gaughan Racin. We are back, baby. And for those that don't remember, Brendan Gaughan with Jeff Motley. And right now, the roles have reversed because I am clean-shaven today. Mr. Jeff Motley of Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
I'm taking the Jimmy Johnson look right now.
Well, you know, it's rather amusing because normally I'm the one that comes in here.
I'm celebrating his final season.
I like that. I like it. And we'll have a lot to talk about him, I think, today. But welcome back, guys. You know, Gaughan Racing, NASCAR racing has been gone for a
couple of months,
right now.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely been an odd time, just like you guys. But we are excited to be back in the VSiN studio. We are excited to be kind of in the South Point Casino, the shell that formerly was the South Point Casino.
Yeah, those that are watching us on the internet, it's kind of weird seeing this darkened sports book that's sitting right behind us right now.
It's weird seeing the whole place like this, but you know what? We got great things to talk about. Hope everybody at home is being safe, but you know what? NASCAR's back. Darlington, South Carolina has allowed us to go race. No fans, a lot of modified rules, tons of things to cover right now, Jeff, especially on a betting standpoint, because a lot of weird things with this race and some huge pit note news.
Well, there's a lot of unknowns going in. There's incredible unknowns going because there's going to be no practice. There's going to be no qualifying. There's going to be they're going to draw for starting positions, and I think they're going to set the top 12 in owner points are going to draw for their positions, and then 13 through 24, and then I think the rest of the field. So at least we won't have a situation where we have a car that is obviously week in and week out not up to speed with some of the leaders that would get a lucky pill draw and be starting up in the front of the pack.
Let's break that down a little more for the folks. So what they've done, Jeff, is the charter system NASCAR is 1 through 36 are locked into the race. So instead of having...
They're going to let them start 40 cars.
Yep. Well, we always have 40. 40 is a full field anyway.
And I don't think only 40 are planning on showing
40 showed up. So, but what they've done is instead of, like you said, instead of having 36th place car owner, which... You know, they're 36th for a reason, not trying to be rude to the smaller budget teams. They're 36th for a reason. Instead of having that team up front by a luck of a draw, they segmented it. 1 through 12 in owners' points will draw for positions 1 through 12. 13 through 24 will draw for spaces 13 through 24. 25 through 36 will draw for 25 through 36. Open teams will draw for their 4 spots. So I think it's a very good move on NASCAR's part. It lets us bettors know that we're not going to have something really stupid happen in that first turn, because the first turn already, as an old driver,
it's going to be a little bit hairy.
God.
But I think one thing we also need to explain, we probably are going to have a few people who are listening to the show who maybe they haven't been into NASCAR that much because they're looking for something to bet, and it's finally giving them something else to bet on. And the reason that NASCAR goes by the owner points, a great example is that we've got 2 drivers, one who hasn't raced at all this year. In fact, he hasn't raced much in a year and a half, who is going to be getting into a car that's in the top. It's near the top 12 in points, or at least really close
12.
by.
No, it's in the top 12.
Top 12. And then you've got another driver who was injured at Daytona and missed the next 2 races, but his team still ran well and got them a position in the points. So it doesn't matter who the driver is. And for example, if Kyle Busch could not race, they would still be one of the top 12 cars, and it would be only fair to that car owner.
Yep. So that was good move on NASCAR's part, in my opinion. I like that move. So that's how the starting procedure is going to take place, and that affects us betting, especially at a place like Darlington where turn 1 is so scary. Let's talk about a few more of the cool pit notes that you touched over there. And it's one of those things that we're going to briefly glance over one of them because I don't care to talk about those situations. But Matt Kenseth, former NASCAR champion, Matt Kenseth is in the 42 Chip Ganassi Racing Chevrolet for Kyle Larson. Kyle had his deal during the e-racing thing. So Matt Kenseth. And I got some stats for later in the show, Jeff, but Matt Kenseth at Darlington in a race car that's run extremely well at Darlington lately.
And surprisingly, as much as Matt Kenseth seems to have been retired over the last 3 years.
Not as retired as you think.
He's only missed 1 Darlington race.
That's right.
Over
10
the last
races.
10. So,
last 10 races, Matt Kenseth has 9 data points. So
there, and he's in a really good car. Now, look, yes, he's going to be a little bit rusty from just being out of a car for over a year or almost a year. Now, a lot of guys are going to be rusty because no one's been in a race car in the last 2 months. Now, I'm sure they've all been on their rigs and their simulators, and we saw some of the iRacing stuff we saw. So at least guys are a little bit comfortable sitting in a seat holding a steering wheel, but it's a whole lot different when if you actually make a mistake, you can't hit the reset button.
If Matt was coming back into this where everybody had been racing and he jumped in a car, I would say a whole lot tougher. The fact that no one has been able to be in a race car, I think, is an equalizer for Matt Kenseth, brings him back up into the foray of a true conversation of top threes or possibly top 10 for. I think right now, Matt Kenseth to me is a top 10 lock. If you're fantasy betting, Matt Kenseth lock top 10.
Now, Matt has not run nearly as many races with this new downforce package.
No.
How valuable do you think it is to Matt to have a teammate like Kurt Busch, who is such a veteran, he can kind of, and a guy that they were teammates before back at Roush many years ago. So they've maintained a friendship over the years.
Yes, I think Matt Kenseth is in probably the perfect spot for this situation to sneak up on people. If you're a bettor and you can find a top 10 out there, if you can find something like that. Our group matchups unfortunately don't have Matt Kenseth, but if he was in a group somewhere, I'm putting him because I think this is a great opportunity for Kenseth to show. And Chip Ganassi Racing. You got two champions now in your race cars.
Were you surprised he chose Matt?
No. Chip Ganassi right now wants, with what happened, he needs a driver that can come in right now, has a reputation, know that he has a winning reputation, has a great reputation off the track for what he does for sponsors, and it was not, to me, I was impressed that he did it, but I like the pick. I think it's the best pick he could possibly come up with.
Well, and I kind of see your point when you look at some of the key sponsors that Ganassi has with McDonald's, with Credit One Bank. He certainly would fit in with them, and I can't imagine any of those sponsors would have had any issues with that.
Let's go over the second big Darlington 400 pit note. Ryan Newman is back.
He might be the only guy in America that he and I think we got a guy in the truck series that broke himself up pretty bad, Brett Moffitt or something, in a snowboarding accident. But they must be the only guys who were happy that this virus came about. I mean,
they were happy there was a break in racing.
Well, exactly. But I mean, for Ryan, I mean, really, this was a huge break.
No, massive. I mean, you got to figure, the points the way they are, how much further back he would have been. This was a massive break for Ryan Newman to be able to only miss, 3-4 races.
Yeah, let me ask you a question as a racer. You have that horrible accident like he had at Daytona, and look, I don't care. I mean, any racer, if you're in a bad accident, you're going to think about it a little bit, even though as a professional you move on. But here's my question: normally, the first time he would have gotten back in the car, he would have had practice and everything where he could have eased his way back in. He's going to be going. I mean, I don't necessarily know if they're going to go full out on the first lap of the first turn at Darlington, but nevertheless, he is in a real life situation as soon as he gets back in that race car. Is that going to be hard?
I think there'd be a lot of people that would be difficult for, yes. People that have different places in life, people that are different ages in life, people that are different personalities in life. Ryan Newman, and look, I'm friends with Ryan. I've known him a long time, teammates with him.
So you were teammates
years ago, 16 years ago. Ryan and I tend to be, I think, very similar in personality, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem.
Okay.
We're thick-headed. We know what we are. We believe in what we do. We know we're very cerebral about some of the risks that we take and what we do. And I think that Newman's going to have, with a competition caution coming at lap 20, he's going to have 5 laps to go, not lose a lap, shake the cobwebs off, and go, oh, I love this, and I miss this. And Ryan Newman's going to be fine.
Were you surprised he came back?
No, I was surprised it took this long.
Well, I'm sure they had to get medical clearance and.
I'm surprised it took this long. Let's just stick with that.
Well, but here's the deal. In terms of how long it took, well, until they knew they were going back racing, what was the point of making an announcement?
No, true, but I think he wanted to come back while they were still racing.
Oh, well.
And that's it. Like I said, I know Ryan. He felt pretty good. He wanted to come back while they're still racing. But that's not here or there. Other kind of cool news. Remember, folks, there's 2 races this week. Sunday, Wednesday. 3 if you count Xfinity, but Cup races Sunday, Wednesday. So for the bettors, we will cover part of Wednesday's race today. We will talk about that. They're doing 11 races in 7 days for the Cup Series. It's packed. Darlington Sunday, Darlington night Wednesday, Cup Series next Sunday, the Coke 600 at Charlotte. Then Wednesday, another Cup race, a 500K. I love when you
Four
guys do
Cup
that.
races in 11 days.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you have the Xfinity Series mixed in there. You have a Truck Series mixed in there. So NASCAR is trying to get caught up on these schedules. So kudos to them for working so hard.
Well, let me ask you a few questions about how some of this stuff is all going to work.
Okay.
So the race teams have basically said the team members who go to the racetrack are not allowed in their shops.
They're trying to sequester them. Yes.
Correct.
They're trying to have two different
The ones in the shop are not going on the road.
Yep.
And we heard, I think earlier on Thursday morning, Chad Knaus did an interview how he has not seen or touched his race car in 3 weeks. But part of that's because Hendrick has had very strict rules because North Carolina.
North Carolina had
nobody
strict rules.
wanted to jeopardize upsetting Governor Cooper down there in North Carolina. How much of an effect is that going to have?
You know how much Chad Knaus touches that car on a normal basis? 0.
Well, that's there's a role between a car chief and a crew chief.
There you go. You're talking about the right thing now. So what you're doing is this is where the bigger organizations, Jeff, will have a bigger advantage. I'm sorry. This is not a great equalizer for the small team.
Agreed.
This is an unequalizer, if anything. So at a place like Darlington especially, when you look at Darlington, the track that it is, how difficult it is as a driver.
And if you're looking at it watching this on the
VSiN,
internet, you can see it's an egg shape.
It's an egg shape.
One big turn and one.
But the egg shape, the way we drive it, the guts. I'd like to say, hell, we can say balls on this network. The balls it's going to take to drive into turn one. I'm sorry. This is, I mean, hell, I did a Manscaped read on this network. I mean, I can do that, and that was even worse than saying that. I can't tell you enough, Jeff, about how scary going into turn one, how you have to rely on your engineering, your car chief, your setup guys, the gaps, guys.
Let me ask you that.
This right here is how thin we play on gaps.
But 1 and 2 is not as hard as 3 and 4 at Darlington, right? So imagine in the old days when the start finish line was on the other side. You think 1 and 2 is harder than 3 and 4?
Dude, you drive into turn one so hard, and you lift and you float up to that wall, and you go, oh dear God, do my Goodyears have enough grip? And then you hit the gas again through the middle of that corner. And then you come off the corner and you lift again to turn to miss that little gate in the exit nook. And then you hit the gas again. Darlington turn 1 and 2 is such an art form that is frighteningly scary. That is so difficult. And you're going to try to go too wide with no practice. Experience will win this day.
Oh, I completely agree that experience is going to win the day. And that's
the question you had, though, was crew member experience will win this day. The guys at the shop putting them together. Did it hurt that Chad Knaus wasn't there? No.
Well, let me also ask you this. Wasn't it a little bit easier for them that they had cars that were set up for Miami and Atlanta and Texas?
That car, that style
and that's Darlington and Charlotte. So the next 4 races coming up are all going to be on tracks.
But that was NASCAR's plan. Was they said, okay, the 550 package were these type of tracks. This works well to the states that are open, the states that allowed it.
And that were proximity where they could drive back and forth.
They can go back and forth. So
day.
NASCAR's done you were talking about the sequestering of people. So you've taken your race team guys that are on the road. They're only allowing 5 people in the garage. So you take those guys, they're not allowed in the shop. They must stay away from others. Good move. The guys working on the race cars are talking to the car chief, talking to the setup chief is talking to the car chief, is talking to the crew chief. They're doing all that. They're going to be able to come in, stay safe on those things, and keep everybody separate. Good move. All the things they're doing are right, Jeff.
And it's, and the other thing that maybe people don't realize, the driver will not see his race car until he climbs in it.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a driver that had to go maybe if you had to go set the belts, maybe if you had a new car or something, but basically the driver is going to be allowed to stay the night at the racetrack Saturday night. The motorhomes were allowed to park Saturday night. So the driver can be there. The teams are not allowed to stay in a hotel. The teams have to come from their shop. They pull in.
But the drivers can't go over where the teams are working on the car either.
They're not supposed to be there until they get to pit road. They're supposed to stay separated from everybody. They're trying to take this serious, guys. They're trying to make sure this is as safe as they can. And that goes back to the experience on the race team, the experience on on the pit box and the experience behind the wheel. A guy like the rookies, a guy like Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell, Cole Custer. These guys are at a severe disadvantage today.
Well, I mean, they've never been in a Cup car at Darlington. Yes, they've run Xfinity, or maybe they've run I don't know if they haven't run trucks in. Do they still run trucks at Darlington? I don't know if they run trucks anymore there, but you're right. It's going to be completely different. Now, one other thing we can talk about in terms of the race procedure, there's going to be a competition caution at lap 30.
A weird competition.
But it's going to be a little different. So it's going to be important to be running in the top 20 because only the top 20 cars are going to pit on the first lap. And that's another thing they're trying to do a little bit for the social distancing so that they don't have all the teams on pit road at one time. I think their thought process is by the time we get to a second or third pit stop, there'll be some cars a lap down, cars in the lead lap. We won't have quite as much congestion.
What they've done is in the past, Jeff, we've had competition cautions at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Caution comes out, it's just like a regular procedure. This one, because of the unique situation, there is no Goodyear rubber on this racetrack. Zero. No practice, no nothing. They want to give guys times. And so what they've done is they've taken the modified truck series thing where they were starting to throw these ideas out. So what will happen is the field will be frozen. It doesn't hurt you not to be in the top 20 now. It doesn't hurt you not to be, as long as you're on the lead lap, you're good.
Except for this week on the first competition.
Well, no, but what they're doing is the top 20 get to come in. You will maintain your position as long as you get out before the pace car
you'll
comes.
stay in the top 20.
Yes.
You could be the first guy in and have a problem with a lug nut and be the last one out. And you're going to start 20th. You're not going to start 36th.
No, you're still going to start first. They're freezing the field. The field is frozen.
Okay, I was not aware of that. So
yes. So what
I'm
they're
learning
doing?
Something here.
No, what they're doing is all you have to do is beat the pace car back out, and you can have a 3-minute pit stop. You can do whatever you want on that pit stop as long as you beat the pace car. You will be able to maintain that spot. Then they will bring 21 through 40 in. Same rules apply. The field is frozen. So no matter what you do on that pit stop, you will maintain your position.
And then the rest of the race will be a normal race with normal pit stops.
But that gives you a chance if you really blew it and you missed cambers, if you missed your ride heights, all these gaps I was telling you about, these gaps that are this thin, you can now fix those things without having to lose that spot.
Which makes sense when you haven't had any practice.
Your engineers are going off of straight notes. Your crew chiefs are going off of straight notes. That's a good move also. So for bettors, how you have to take that is, once again, the teams with the better engineering, the teams with the better crew chiefs that can make these calls will be ahead of the game. They will have to make less adjustments. Then as the race goes on, you should be able to do normal adjustments. Then your pit crew is back to being your pit crew.
Do you think the limits on the number of crew members that are allowed at the track is going to come into play? Because, I mean, we know this. The guys who go over the wall and pit the car, they don't work on the car. Now, there can only be 16 people there, and that includes the driver and the spotter.
Oh, yeah. And the owners aren't allowed to go. The owners are not allowed to be there.
Well, they would be part of the 16 if they chose to go.
If they chose to. So the limited staff at the track, no, to me it goes back to, like I said, this is an unequalizer. The better teams show up better prepared. So normally the team, a guy like, oh goodness, I don't want to pick on people here, but a front row motorsports team,
okay,
really close to trying to bump up into that next tier. They need that practice to get those things right. Their engineering isn't as strong. Their guys aren't as strong. They maybe have a few things that aren't correct when they unload. They need that time. So this, to me, it goes down to the teams as a bettor. I'm going to look at the Joe Gibbs Racing guys, the Penske guys, the Hendrick guys. But then Hendrick has a knock because their drivers are all younger except for Jimmy. So to me, Joe Gibbs Racing.
Well, Chase Elliott, I think, has been around long enough now. I mean, he's got a few races.
I give him that, but the other William Byron and Alex Bowman have not.
Correct.
Joe Gibbs Racing's got Denny, Kyle,
well, you got one young guy over there with Eric, but you got Martin,
you have
Denny,
three
and
of the
Kyle,
four.
3 veterans. Ganassi's got 2 real veterans.
Ganassi and Penske, to me, are the biggest
Penske's got 2 veterans and a young
Stuart
guy.
Haas Racing has Kevin Harvick.
And Clint Boyer. Eric Almirola, been around a long time.
So these are guys that I think will have an advantage over those younger guys, and the limited staff at the track isn't going to affect you because they're doing nothing. They're pushing the car through tech. They're lining up to race, and then it's your pit crew and your crew chief that are going to make those major adjustments on the fly.
And there can be some real comers and goers as the race goes on, too. I mean, I think that's going to be...
I think you're going to see a lot of, like I said, the first turn, hold on to your lug nuts, boys. This is going to be impressive going into turn 1, lap 1.
I don't think you're going to see these guys push it.
It doesn't matter
too
about
hard.
pushing it. The turn is so difficult at Darlington. It is so hard to go too wide through there. And now if you don't have your gap set, if you don't have these things right, it's going to be wild.
Do you think, though, the start of this race is going to be almost like the start of the Indy 500, where even though they actually technically are 3 wide, they're single file by the time they get to turn 1? Do you not think these guys are going to realize that, hey, look, this is our first time back in 2 months. I know what you say, these drivers, you put a helmet on and suddenly it starts scrunching your brain. But I just have got to believe somewhere deep inside, some of these guys have some gentlemen's agreements and say, look, you know, if Kyle and Truex are on the front row, they're not going to race each other that hard down into turn 1.
You know,
if Brad and Joey, well, maybe not Brad and Joey.
I think that they will try to play nice, but this isn't Indianapolis where you have a quarter mile before you get to turn 1. This is Darlington. It's only 950 feet till you get to turn 1 from the drop of the green flag. You don't have time for everybody to go, excuse me, you move in over here. You go, no, okay, you slide here. We don't have time for that. You got to go. And like you said, comers and goers. If you set your stuff up right, you're going to fly right through the start.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I know that. I'm pretty excited to see how it turns out.
All right, we did the first segment. We didn't talk a thing about the odds. When we come back, we're going to talk about odds to win races, our top threes, all the things we do. But we had a lot of stuff to talk about.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you being back on Gaughan Racing. When we come back, we're going to delve into the betting odds pretty soon on Gaughan Racing.
back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gaughan Racing.
And welcome back to Gaughan Racing. VSiN Studios here. Brendan Gaughan, Jeff Motley, my favorite now bearded cohort. We went through, Jeff, all the nuts and bolts. We didn't get to the betting yet. Let's just jump right in. Odds to win the race. Now, we all know that we always shy away from these, me and you. It's tough to pick a 40-man horse race. This one, I think, more than some, except experience will lead the day. And if you look at the odds, that shows. Kyle Busch plus 600, Denny Hamlin there at 600. Got a bunch at 800. Kevin Harvick, Brad Kay, Joey Logano, Martin Truex at 800. Then you get some double digits, Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. Eric Jones alone at 18. Jimmy Johnson, 22-1. Ryan Blaney, Kurt Busch, William Byron, 25s. Matt Kenseth at 30-1, back in the deal. Ryan Newman down there at 100-1. They put him in it. Field at 30-1. I don't think anybody thinks the field will win this race.
I think what kind of jumps out at me a little bit is usually the only time we see the favorites' odds being this high is at Daytona and Talladega. We're not used to seeing that on an intermediate racetrack like a Darlington. So to say that there's great value right now on some really top-of-the-line drivers. I mean, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin both, 6-1 plus 600. That's
and look, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, 2 wins. Denny Hamlin, 2 wins, 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s, last 10 races.
Denny always runs well at Darlington. And look, I will say over the last year and a half, Denny Hamlin has been as hot and as solid as any racer out there. I know he didn't win the championship last year, and that's hard to do.
I'm with you.
But I think Denny Hamlin is a guy that week in and week out, he is not far behind Kyle Busch at all when it comes to contending every week.
Well, and do you put any play in he did great on the iRacing?
I don't. No.
Sorry.
And I don't think they ran Darlington on the iRacing.
No, but he just has momentum. I believe in momentum. But, those are great numbers. And guys that you look at their stats there, Martin Truex Jr. It has, those are high numbers for guys that really normally we're talking are plus 425, plus 325. They're pretty high up there.
Well,
so
Kurt Busch is a guy that has always run well at Darlington. Been very good there, and he's 25-1.
Kurt Busch, last 5 races, 5 top 10s. He has old school wins there. The most famous win of all NASCAR.
He
lost it.
Yeah,
but still,
Ricky Craven.
He's always there. But it's good numbers. And Matt Kenseth won in 2013. So if you're looking for a flyer, Matt Kenseth can win this race. I'm sorry.
No, I don't disagree. And wouldn't it be a storybook?
Oh, dude, I'd love it. I would love that. That would be such an amazing story. We do love our DraftKings top 3. This week, though, once again, we normally talk Kyle Busch as a minus number on a top 3. Right now, Kyle Busch plus 150, Kevin Harvick plus 150. You got Denny Hamlin plus 175, Martin Truex 225, Joey Logano 250, Brad Kay 275. There are some great numbers here, and I'm going to look down, though, and go Matt Kenseth plus 700, Ryan Newman 25-1. There's some really strong numbers out here in the DraftKings top 3.
No, I agree with you. I like seeing a couple of veterans like Eric Almirola and Clint Boyer both at 12-1. I think that's kind of interesting because I think they're guys that, we talked about how important experience is going to be this week because of the lack of practice and no qualifying. Not that qualifying matters that much, but to have Eric Almirola and Clint Boyer, those guys got a lot of races at Darlington.
Oh, dude. I'm just looking at the stats, the starts, all these things. And Denny Hamlin, right now, you could legitimately have a Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick all in the top 3 because of how strong they've been, the teams they are, the things we're talking about, and you could have a stellar day because they're all plus lines on the DraftKings top 3.
No, you're exactly right. And I think that's probably the big key that we're looking at. We're so used to seeing those negative numbers and to see some of those positive numbers. And even on down, you look at guys, Alex Bowman. Now, I know he doesn't have a lot of time at Darlington, but Alex Bowman has been really good on intermediate tracks all of a sudden.
Well, if you're going there, do you go down to the Matt DiBenedetto, who started this season running really well? How far do you go if you go that far?
Right, and I think the one thing that you can probably tell that the DraftKings guys are thinking is there's a lot of unknowns this weekend. So when you see the numbers so close, look at it. The top 10 guys on the list are from between 150 and 400. So it's really, really tightly packed.
Some stats for you, by the way. Alex Bowman, 29th, 24th, 23rd, and 18th.
Yeah, but I think we've seen a different Alex Bowman over the last year and a half.
True, he won intermediates, but to me, the experience is what's going to be the key. And one of those, Jimmy Johnson plus 600. Now, this is a thing though that might feel right into his wheelhouse. I like Jimmy Johnson at the 600 and the Matt Kenseth 700. I really do.
Well, and I think if there's ever going to be a little bit of Jimmy saying, "Man, I got to do something here,"
this plays into his wheelhouse right here.
Right.
This is in Jimmy's wheelhouse. Line him up and race. He's got a big advantage.
And his conditioning is going to help too. Running in this heat, they're going to be running in for the first time. I think conditioning will really help him.
All right, we knocked out the DraftKings top 3 of the winners. When we come back, head-to-head matchups, group matchups, more on Gaughan Racing.
Welcome back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the Sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gaughan Racing.
Welcome back in again, everybody. Brendan Gaughan, Jeff Motley, VSiN studio in the beautiful and empty South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa in Las Vegas. Jeff, head-to-head matchups.
Head-to-head, I know we don't talk about them a whole lot. We try to hit on them a little bit.
But there's some fun. There's some interesting stuff here.
There are, and I think maybe the one thing that jumps out at me a little bit is Joey Logano's getting a plus 120 against Denny Hamlin at minus 140, and Joey's also getting a plus 130 against Kyle Busch at a minus 150. A couple things I like there. Joey has certainly been strong. I mean, he's already got a couple wins this year. Joey runs well pretty much everywhere. He doesn't have the greatest track record at Darlington. However, he has no track record at Darlington with Paul Wolfe as his crew chief, and Paul Wolfe as his crew chief has a really good record at Darlington. And I think veteran crew chiefs coupled with veteran good drivers is going to be a great recipe for success this weekend at Darlington. So Joey Logano there in his plus 120 against Denny and plus 130 against Kyle Busch. Those kind of just jump out at me a little bit.
Paul Wolfe, first place with Brad Keselowski in 18, fifth with Brad Keselowski in 19, a couple seconds with Brad Keselowski, really good. And then you go to Logano, who was second behind Brad Keselowski in 2018.
Right. Good notes. Good notes.
You got Paul, and him and Paul Wolfe have really meshed really quickly.
Absolutely.
So that
wins. I mean,
those are decent plus. I mean, you're looking for a Joey Logano plus line. You got it right there. If we go to our second page, a head-to-head, I've got massive circles, scribbles all over my page. There's one that screams at me right here. It is William Byron minus 135 with Matt Kenseth plus 115.
What happened to your iRacing momentum? Brendan is quiet.
Forget about the momentum. Matt Kenseth, I don't care if that ain't been in a car. Matt Kenseth 115 to William Byron's 130 minus 135. Yes, William Byron's been driving. Yes, he's got Chad Knaus. Yes, that's great. I'm scrolling down here to get to the 2 data points for William Byron. He got a pole at Darlington last year. Way to go! He finished 21st and a 36th. Matt Kenseth plus 115. Foreshadowing, I'm picking that. I'm picking Matt Kenseth in my 5 picks at the end of the show.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. All right, let's get to the head-to-heads. I'm kind of bummed about one thing, Jeff.
Groups.
I mean the groups.
Groups. Yes.
Sorry. I'm kind of bummed about one thing, Jeff.
Same thing I'm bummed about, right?
Matt Kenseth
not in a group.
So we need to talk to the guys at the Westgate. Get us in a group. Come on. These are coming from the Westgate Casino here in Las Vegas, the Superbook. Group A, Kyle Busch, 235, Denny Hamlin, 55, Kevin Harvick, 75, and Joey Logano, plus 300. Cool thing about the groups this week, they may not move much because of how difficult it may be to bet. So you could probably keep some good action here, and we're not going to have practice to change them. So Group 1, tough group to pick, buddy.
Tough group to pick, but I tell you, big numbers on Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano there. I mean, a plus 300, that's probably going to be the biggest number we see in the group matchups of any of the groups.
And we just talked about the Paul Wolfe, but that's still it's a tough number to haul. It's a big number to win, but that's a tough group to haul in the whole deal. If you think he's going to win, it's a great number. Group B, Chase Elliott 250, Martin Truex Jr. 260, Brad K 270, Alex Bowman 280. Like we talked, I like the 2 middle guys there. I like the experience. You think Chase Elliott has some there, though?
I wouldn't pick Chase Elliott in that group based on the odds. I don't like him being the favorite in that group. So I don't look at Chase Elliott quite being as young as, say, William Byron and Alex Bowman on the Hendrick team. So I agree with you that Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, 2 guys that are getting a little bit longer odds, who have experience. I mean, Brad has won at Darlington. You know, that's the interesting thing about Darlington. You know, we only run there once a year.
No.
It's not like a lot of the tracks where we go to twice a year. So a little bit different there. So
we go there twice this year.
Well, I'm going to be twice. Actually, going to go 3 times this year, and twice in 4 days. So we're still going to be back there on Labor Day weekend for the throwback weekend.
That's amazing. All right, so Group C we jump into. Eric Jones, 245, Ryan Blaney, 65, Kurt Busch, 65, Jimmy Johnson, 285. There's 2 things I like here. Eric Jones being the favorite, I think is completely wrong. And 265 on Blaney, I also think is backwards. Not that I dislike Eric, so you don't yell at me and get a mad tweet at me. But experience, Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, 265, 285. We just talked about Chip Ganassi, Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch. I like that. Jimmy Johnson I like, but is he going to be able to come with some of that, luster of Jimmy Johnson? I like the bottom 2 in that group a lot.
I'm totally with you. No argument on my side either, and for the exact same reasons that you're looking at it. I'm not going to take a young guy over a veteran if the veteran is in a competitive car in a group matchup right now, given the different factors we're going to see at Darlington this week.
And I'm trying to look up some Ryan Blaney stuff real quick here. He's not even in the top 20 of finishes and there he is down here. 5 races, no top 10s. best finish of 13th. I'm liking the bottom two. Group D, we got Matt DiBenedetto 260, Clint Boyer 260, Eric Almirola 260, and Ryan Newman 280.
Again, you got the guy one of the guys at the top is one of the younger drivers, not the veterans. I'm not ready to go jump on the Ryan Newman bandwagon. I want to see him get a race in.
I'm not ready to jump on the Roush Racing Ryan Newman bandwagon.
That either. I mean, I think if I had to pick somebody in that group, I probably like Boyer.
I like Boyer experience, but I do like Matt DiBenedetto. He's got experience. People don't realize it. Matty D has experience, and he's been doing so well. He's even got a top 10 at Darlington with some of the I mean, he drove for Levine last year and got 8th place at Darlington.
Well, again, I'm just kind of curious to see what kind of preparedness
they've got. Well, remember, he's at Penske.
This is true.
I mean,
very true.
Group E, Chris Buescher, 255, Christopher Bell, 265, Cole Custer, 265, Austin Dillon, 275. That right there is the definition of the group that we've talked about with no experience, except one person has the most.
And that's Austin Dillon, and he's the long shot in it. Really, really, really like Austin Dillon a lot in that group right there.
That, to me, is an upside-down grid, and Austin should be the huge favorite in that one.
I would agree with you there.
All right, and Chris Buescher was not in our Group F. He was in Group E. So our Ron Flatter Group F, for those that are longtime fans of our show, in homage to our good friend Mr. Flatter, Ryan Priest plus 265, John Hunter Nemechek 65, Michael McDowell at 265, and Ty Dillon rounds it out, all plus 265s. Most of the season to this point, if you go back to the old days, Ty Dillon was our favorite almost every time in that group. I still put him in that favorite.
I agree. I think Ty Dillon's probably the guy that you got to look at.
Michael McDowell's got a lot of experience, though.
He does, but I think Ty Dillon's probably in a little bit better car. Granted, their experience levels are probably similar. Maybe Michael's been around a little bit longer than Ty, but I'd definitely be leaning toward Ty in that group right now.
Ryan Priest, like him a lot, but very difficult to have him, as a favorite with that few starts there. John Hunter, I love John Hunter,
who is really surprised,
done well.
He's been the most consistent rookie this year.
I love Nemechek. I love the Nemecheks. It's hard for me not to say go with John Hunter, but Ty Dillon right there.
With Bell, Reddick, and Custer supposed to be the top rookies, and really, I think Nemechek has been the better rookie this year.
John Hunter's done a nice job of it. All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to talk about the standings at our Gaughn Racing Little League, make our picks, and talk about the second race on Wednesday at Darlington when we come back on Gaughn Racing.
back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gaughn Racing.
And welcome back in, everybody. Brendan Gaughan, Jeff Motley, still here in the VSiN studio and having a lot of fun doing Gaughn Racing this week. So excited we actually have Gaughn Racing and NASCAR Racing to do, so we are excited about it. We'll be remiss if we don't mention, we did have some props this week to do. Darlington 400, manufacturer to win the race. We got a Toyota plus 140. We got a Ford plus 200 and a Chevy plus 220. I think if you look at,
I think those numbers are probably pretty fair.
That seems right. I like the Toyota because the Gibbs camp, of course. I mean, they're your that. But you know, with Kevin Harvick in a Ford, that does, and Brad and Joey equals it out. I'd be tough to pick that one today.
Yeah, and I think if a Chevrolet is going to win, you're probably looking at either Kurt or Matt. I'm not as bullish on the Hendrick cars
camp yet
as much as I am probably Kurt Busch or Matt Kenseth.
Same me. We also have one. I do like these props. They're kind of fun. The race winner car number over 17.5 or under 17.5. Now the Westbook here, or the Westgate here with the Superbook, they're not taking a lot of risk on this one here, guys. Minus 120 on the over, minus 110 on the under.
Well, the 17.5 is sort of the giveaway because it puts Kyle Busch on one side and puts Denny Hamlin on the other side. It also mixes up Joey Logano with Brad Keselowski, and Harvick is over there on the smaller side. Not
a lot of action going on there. I'd stay away from that one. But I do like the even odd. And I always love this because the even is always the underdog here at -2 for the favorite with -250, and the odd is +180. When you talk about Kyle Busch being 18, 22 Joey Logano, 2 Brad Keselowski, 4 Kevin Harvick, some big numbers, but you leave out one of the hottest guys.
You leave out number 11.
There you go, Denny Hamlin.
And you're also leaving out number 19, Martin Truex Jr. And I think those are two guys who have a really good shot to go down to Darlington and win the race.
That's a fun prop. I always do love that prop. And it is. There's so many even numbers that are good, but I do like that odd number. I don't know. There's a couple guys that are pretty good at it. All right. Now, without further ado, we will get to our picks. So, for those that are regulars, we have our little league here. My disclaimer is, remember, my bets are my league bet is only for entertainment purposes only. We normally go in order. Right now, we're not going to keep stats on the league.
Right, we're not going to keep stats, and we're not going to go back all the way to Phoenix.
To where it was.
So we're just going to go week to week.
We would be remiss. We always go in last to first order. And, of course, we won't get to talk about who was first, because here's what happens when you beat the two hosts of a fantasy show. If you're the producer and you beat us, you get furloughed.
Well, that's sort of what happened to Ann.
I'm just saying. Okay. We love you, Ann. We miss you.
We miss you.
Don't kick our butt next time. You might still be sitting here. I'm just saying.
But we got a new sheriff in town.
We do have a sheriff in town, and he was part of the pit crew, and the pit crew was extremely dead last. So we will start with producer Isaiah, in the place of producer Ann, who is beating us, so we fired her. Don't beat us. What do you want, Isaiah?
See, here's the thing, is we were in last, so now that I'm here, I feel like I get her mojo, and now I'll be in first, right? That's how this works?
I like the way he's thinking. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's how we'll start it out with. We'll have Brad Keselowski over Martin Truex at +105. That head-to-head. Kyle Busch, Group A, +265, experience there. Kurt Busch in Group C at +265, more experience. A lot of veteran-heavy group picks here. Clint Boyer in Group D at +260. And then I'm going to go with you from earlier when you were all about iRacing experience. William Byron, top 3 at +600.
He's going into the iRacing theory, which might be why pit crew was last.
Yeah, well.
Okay, we like it, Isaiah. All right. Mr. Motley, you were in second as the league closed months ago.
I was.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take a race winner.
Ooh.
I'm going to go Denny Hamlin to win the race at +600. I really like the way he's been going, and I think that we've got a great opportunity. I'm going to go into the group matchups for 3 of my picks, and you're going to see a trend here with veterans. I'm going Brad Keselowski at +270 to win Group B. I'm taking Kurt Busch at +265 in Group C. Why are you looking at me funny?
Because I'm not going. We're going to be like we're twinsies, and I don't like it.
And, well, this might really send you flying over the back of your chair then, because I'm also going Austin Dillon in Group E at +275. And my last pick is I'm going to take that +180 on an odd number car to win the race.
I like it. I like that. Well, since I can't be twinsies with you too much, so I am also going to go for a race winner today on my picks. But I'm going to jump on the Kevin Harvick bandwagon. I like Rodney Childers. I like him. I like the experience. I like all that group over there. So I'm going that. I'm going to go DraftKings top 3 for one of mine, and I'm going to go Denny Hamlin plus 175 because I can win. I can even win both of those and have a good day. I am going to go to the head-to-head matchups with the one that I had circled and asterisked and put everything. I am taking Matt Kenseth over William Byron in the head-to-head matchups. I think that is just way too easy to pass up an easy, 115 or 135, whatever it was. I'm not looking back. And then I'm going into the group matchups. Unfortunately, me and Jeff, we will be twinsies, but we'll be going head-to-head with Isaiah. I got Brad Keselowski in Group B, and I got Kurt Busch in Group C. I do like those. As Jeff is writing down so he can keep score of our
I
league.
keep score.
He is the official scorekeeper of the league, by the way.
So we've all taken Kurt in Group C.
We all took Kurt in Group C.
Kurt should win Group C if we know what we're talking about.
Or if we don't know what we're talking about, Jimmy Johnson, the rookie, will win it, and Eric Jones will win. We'll all look like a bunch of morons. So normally we try to get out of the show at this point. But
we have another race.
So everybody remember, Sunday, May 17th is the Cup Series race at Darlington during the day. We will come back Wednesday night at Darlington and race again.
But we will not have a show between the two races.
There'll be no show.
We're going to talk about
So we're going to talk about the betting of it. And now I'm going to start out with saying first, anybody that does well on Sunday, guys, most likely those same groups will do well on Wednesday. Pay attention, though, particular to people that maybe got into an early accident. If Denny Hamlin gets in an early accident, his odds may go up. He's still going to be a favorite for the second race.
And also, if he were to lead a large portion of the race and then blow an engine with 50 to go, and he ends up finishing 33rd or 34th.
So look for those guys.
Look for those top
But look at that finish order and know that finish order will probably follow something similar for Sunday. Now let's talk about the particulars of that race. How are they going to start it, Mr. Jeff Motley?
So they're going to invert the top 20 finishers from the Sunday race. They will start in reverse order of the way they finish. And
so the winner will be 20th. 20th will be the pole.
Correct. And then they will invert the remainder of the field for the rest of the positions. So
the same thing. 21st becomes the winner. He starts 40th. 40th becomes 20th.
So theoretically, it's one of those situations where if you have one of the top guys and he ends up having trouble, whether it's late in the race and ends up finishing in the 30s, then that's where he's going to start. Yeah, he's going to start back there, or he might be starting the 20s. But either way, if he has trouble, he will not start in the top 20 the very next day.
And for the bettors, what you have to watch out for is if a Kyle Busch finishes 22nd, he's going to start 38th. Now, that normally isn't a big deal. We've seen Kyle Busch come from the back of the field millions of times. But the problem with Kyle Busch in 38th in this situation is at Darlington, he's going to have some of these guys with very little engineering. He's going to have the B.J. McLeods. He's going to have these guys in front of him now, so he has to be very cautious off the start.
And that race Wednesday is going to be shorter.
Yeah, it's
I think we're running 400 miles on Sunday, but I think it's only like 300 or 300 and some change
it's a short
on Wednesday night, so it's a shorter race.
I feel bad I didn't look that one up. Bad host. I don't have that stat in front of me.
But it's a little shorter race.
But they're doing the same thing. They're doing competition caution at lap 20. And there's another thing on this, Jeff. When we start Sunday, there is going to be 0 laps run. We've talked about it over and over. There's also means there is 0 Goodyear rubber on that track. Now, let's say it doesn't rain, which Darlington rains a lot, but doesn't rain Sunday. They race the Xfinity race Tuesday.
And what is a key that they've just announced about the Xfinity race?
The Goodyear tire that they're going to run for the Cup Series, they will also run for the Xfinity Series. So one set of rubber go on this racetrack. If it doesn't rain, Sunday, it's a night race. Honestly.
A night race on Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Yes.
That doesn't make a big difference except for the drivers. It'll be a lot nicer for the driver in the car. Maybe. It's still damn hot. But what it really...
It's also going to mean, 2 races in 4 days. And I do think you got to look for guys that are in good shape, guys that are well-conditioned.
Hey, I'd put me up against any of them.
Look, you've run 500 miles before, and you've been just fine at the end of 500 miles. And I know you've run on some hot days in Daytona and Talladega. So
Don't flex on the fat kid. I'm just saying.
When I'm talking about drivers in good shape, I'm not necessarily talking about the guy who looks like he could go and play quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. I'm talking about a guy.
No, we just have a driver dating one.
That you don't really. Exactly. I'm talking about a guy that every time he gets out of the car doesn't look like he's going to fall over. And we've seen some of this. Sometimes we've seen
guys in
certain
shape
guys
that have that way. So you got to pay attention to that. But that Sunday race, some guys might be a little dehydrated. Some of that veteran experience once again will come into play for that for that theory. So you got to pay attention to that. Pay attention to the numbers, guys. We have many shows on this that say it's a numbers game. You pay attention to those numbers. Look at the finish orders. Pay attention to where they were. Their odds will go up. Take advantage when the bookmakers put those odds the wrong way quickly because they're going to have to react fast in this situation.
And one thing I think that you really, really need to look for on the Wednesday race is if you see some of these younger guys that have got kind of long odds on Sunday, they're going to get 400 miles of experience on Sunday.
Does it really move the needle that far?
Well, guess what? We're going to find out because if you see some of those guys start to charge late, and if you see an Alex Bowman or a William Byron or someone like that who ends up finishing in the top 10 on Sunday, then I would say that they've got a really good shot to have decent odds and do something on Wednesday.
And I didn't think about that because the teams that I've said don't have the good engineering, they're going to have to work their butt off on Sunday. They get to come back Wednesday and be fully loaded. Like their travels are set, they're good to go. So the Wednesday race may be tougher than I think. The Wednesday race may be tougher.
Well, and a lot of times, keep in mind, these teams, even if they run a place twice in a year, sometimes a lot of these places, it's 6 months between races and a lot changes.
Adjust.
It's just 4 days.
No, but it's also 4 days back to back. Also, watch out for the guys that ding the race cars. If you have to bring the backup car from the primary car, if you can bring that same race car.
And NASCAR is not allowing the guys at the racetrack to go in the shop between the races.
Oh, my goodness. This is so crazy.
And there's going to be a NASCAR official at all the shops to make sure they're not there.
They're planting officials in the shop. So,
absolutely.
Guys, it's hectic. It's chaotic. Pay attention to the numbers from the bookmakers. Pay attention to the races. We're just excited there's NASCAR racing.
Absolutely.
Jeff, we're glad to be back. Isaiah, all the crew here at VSiN, thank you guys. Be safe. Have fun watching racing. We'll see you next week on Gaughn Racing.